And then tomorrow, next week, we'll do actually riding the gaits. So I think we're going to do next week the canter and the walk, and then the following week the trot, and move through there. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions that we'll need to cover through the weeks coming up. If you have a question, absolutely, about what we're talking about tonight, feel free to type into the chat box, and I am happy to answer questions as we go along or at the end. And it also is possible, if you would like to talk instead of chat, I believe that there is something down where you would type your message that you can click on, and it will raise your hand, and I can give you the controls. You can talk instead of typing. So if it's something that's a little bit more involved, your question is a little bit longer, or you want to talk about this, then I'm happy to do that too. So what is feel when we relate it to riding horses, and more specifically to dressage? One of the most beautiful things about riding, and why we all do it and work hard on it every day, is because of those feelings that we have when we are really connected with our horse. Those moments that everything just feels like it flows, and our horse is reading our mind, and it feels like we're one. That's what we're working on all the time. It can happen at home. It might happen for fleeting moments at the horse show, but I really think that this is why we ride. This is why we're so dedicated to it. These are the moments that we're searching for, and the when we start working too hard or thinking too hard, or going a little bit down the wrong path, thinking that things are supposed to be in a certain way, or that, maybe we get something mixed up with our aids or with our feel, and the horse is misunderstanding us. So for me, feel is being able to know what is going on underneath me. And I often think about it like I am connected to the ground through my horse's feet. And so I really want to have that awareness about where those feet are and how they are landing on the ground. The feeling of being connected to my horse, not only physically, but knowing where he or she is mentally and emotionally as well. Feeling is the ability to stay balanced and aligned, even when my horse starts to get crooked. So having that feeling not to perpetuate or go down the road of more and more and more crookedness. I need to be having the feeling of being aligned, having the feeling of being independently balanced, so that I can keep things going on the right track in a better way. Even if my horse is feeling a little weaker on one side or stronger, these kind of things I need to have the awareness of. The feel is the ability to move seamlessly with my horse and not disturb his or her natural movement. And that we're going to talk about a little bit more in the next couple weeks, where we talk about how the horses actually move, what they're doing to us when they're moving, and then how do we get our bodies able to swing with them and move with them without interrupting what they're supposed to be doing. We do sometimes have to interrupt what we don't like that they're doing. but we don't want to be interrupting when they are going in good balance, encouraging them to go in a bit of uphill and independent balance. And then feel is the ability to correct imbalances before they become disruptive and cause tension and pressure. So I think that that's really important, is that awareness to be able to notice what's going on with your horse. And the more feeling we have and the more educated we get in that direction, then the less surprised we are by things that are happening. And the more we can think ahead, we can be a little bit ahead of our horses. And then the aids can be less and they will get more, because we're not waiting until things get so bad that then we need to make big disruptive aids and or have, you know, a strong pressure in order to get a reaction. So I think an important thing is that we develop a little bit of the knowledge of the sport, the actual principles of dressage, while we're working on our feel. So in understanding the principles ensures that you're focusing on the right movement when developing your feel. So for instance, if you did not know that the horse was supposed to have a 4-beat walk, you wouldn't be looking for those 4 beats when you were riding the walk, and you wouldn't be trying to correct it if it was making a, you know, pacing or jigging. This knowledge is important for us to have. So we need, definitely we need to have that body feel, that connection with the horse, and ability to know what's going on underneath us. But we also need to have the knowledge of what's supposed to be going on underneath us, so that we can start to really discern what we want and what we don't want, how to ask for aids, and when we're actually maybe defending instead of asking in a positive way, defending what's happening, even defending it to our trainer that we have to ride that way because we, you know, we feel things become repeated, mistakes happen, and then we start riding in a defensive way instead of a positive way. So I think that's really important, to start to learn the principles of dressage. So what I did is I wrote down what the FEI would say are some general principles for us, and the object of the sport. So the object of dressage is the development of the horse into a happy athlete through harmonious education. They need to help all the people in the sport to know that that's the way it's supposed to be. As a result, it makes the horse calm, supple, loose, and flexible, but also confident, attentive, and keen, thus achieving perfect understanding with the athlete. These qualities are demonstrated by the freedom and regularity of the paces. So regularity means the 4-beat walk, the 2-beat trot, and the 3-beat canter. So when you're talking about dressage, if you start to lose that regularity, which doesn't have to mean lameness, it means that the horse might be pacing because of tension. It means that it might be short and long behind because of a tension in the back, a heaviness in the hand, a weakness somewhere, a 4-beat canter, these kind of things. So this is freedom and regularity of the paces. It's very, very important in the principles of dressage. The harmony, lightness, and ease of the movements. lightness on the forehand, and the engagement of the hindquarters originating from a lively impulsion. The acceptance of the bit with submissiveness and throughness without any tension or resistance. The horse thus gives the impression of doing of its own accord. So, this is very important where, when we are riding our tests, and then, of course, when we're trying, working in our daily training, that we are in a positive way influencing our horses, teaching them what they need to do so that they can be active participants in the movements. We don't want to look like we're forcing or pushing or convincing. So in your daily training practice, that's why we want to have this positive intent, why we want to teach the horses. I put a quote up a little bit ago. It's not the bit that is influencing the horse. It's the understanding of the bit that influences the horse. So when you realize it's teaching the horse what the bit means, that is going to create that reaction, then all of a sudden we don't need to go to all kind of skinny and crazy bits and this and that and the other thing in order to get our point across. Instead, we need to sometimes back things down, make things easier, maybe do groundwork so the horse understands what its body needs to do when you influence it with the bit. So this is important, and it's in the FEI's principles that the horse gives us the impression that it's doing of its own accord what's required in the test. Confident and attentive, submitting generously to the control of the athlete, remaining absolutely straight in any movement on a straight line, and bending accordingly when moving on curved lines. The walk is regular, free, and unconstrained. The trot is free, supple, regular, and active. The canter is united, light, and balanced. The hindquarters are never inactive or sluggish. The horse responds to the slightest indication of the athlete and therefore gives life and spirit to all the rest of its body. By virtue of a lively impulsion and the suppleness of the joints, free from the paralyzing effects of the resistance, the horse obeys willingly and without hesitation, and responds to the various aids calmly and with precision, displaying a natural and harmonious balance, both physically and mentally. In all the work, even at the halt, the horse must be on the bit. A horse is said to be on the bit when the neck is more or less raised and arched according to the stage of training, and the extension or collection of the pace, accepting the bridle with a light and consistent, soft, submissive contact. Head should remain in a steady position, as a rule, slightly in front of the vertical, with a supple pole as the highest point of the neck, and no resistance should be offered to the athlete. Cadence is shown in trot and canter and is the result of proper harmony that a horse shows when it moves with well-marked regularity, impulsion, and balance. Cadence must be maintained in all the different trot and canter exercises and in all the variations of these paces. The regularity of the paces is fundamental to dressage. So you see it here again. The regularity is fundamental to dressage, and it really says it in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. The walk is regular, the trot is free and regular. The canter is united, which is regular. United means that the horse is carrying the same lead, front and back, and united means that it's not in a four beat. So this is mentioned on more than one occasion. So at any time that that your horse becomes stressed or lacking understanding and then becomes irregular, whatever it is that you're doing in your training needs to become simplified for a minute. You need to go back, go slower, go to a different gait, do a less angle, whatever it is. But this regularity is extremely important. So when you start, if you start to lose that, that's a big principle in dressage, and a big part of your feel is to know when the paces are regular. Okay. The FEI goes on to say that the scales of training can be used as helpful checks on the way of going for the rider when performing a movement, for the judge when marking a movement, and the spectator when looking at a movement. When there is rhythm, regularity, suppleness, contact, impulsion, straightness, and in the more advanced tests, collection, the way of going is good. So, does anybody have any questions about that part, what the FEI is talking about as far as the basic principles? Now, what I do want to say is the FEI, this is going from children's tests all the way to the Grand Prix, all the way to the Olympic level. Okay. We are not talking about in the children's tests doing collected work, but we are saying in the FEI, in the children's tests, that they are asking for these basic principles. The fact that you're looking for regular paces, a nice connection, a willing partner is going to start all the way at the youngest, at the lowest level in the FEI. We have in the US, of course, we have our own USDF tests, USEF tests, I guess they call them, and then USDF has the introductory tests, but and some of their requirements are going to be a little bit easier as far as the connection, the contact that they're looking for. And of course, you're rewarded for steadiness, but it's not required in those introductory and training level tests. But this is, these are your gold star principles. The training pyramid, I think, is an awesome place to start as far as your training and what you're thinking about as far as what's the most important thing when you have to make decisions in your training. The way that I would define the training pyramid, and the way I look at it, how do I use it with my daily work, is that bottom is something that I fall back on all the time. If I'm losing the biggest parts of the pyramid, I need to step back for a minute. I need to step back. I need to get that back, and then I build up again. Collection is at the top, and that's what we're working toward with our upper level horses. But that does not mean that in your lower levels, you're not thinking about the higher parts of the pyramid. Okay. They apply to everybody. So at the bottom, this one is in German and in English, is your takt rhythm. Okay. Rhythm, regularity. And I don't think that you have these things without relaxation. So the USDF pyramid will say relaxation there at the bottom. This is the German one. It says rhythm at the bottom. I don't think you have rhythm without relaxation. So it all goes together for me. If my horse is losing the rhythm, I need to find an exercise, back up a little bit, get some half vaults through, slow down, change gaits, whatever it takes. But without the rhythm, you don't continue. If you're making a half pass and your horse becomes uneven or forebeat, you need to gain the gait back and then continue with the exercise. Okay? Suppleness, again, it doesn't matter if you're in training level, introductory level, children's level, or pre-St. George. It's the next thing. When you start to lose the suppleness, you need to go back in your training and work to find that again. There are going to be times while you're riding that your horse is going to lose their balance, going to get stiff, going to run through a half halt, going to get nervous. This is absolutely going to happen, but you're not going to ignore it. You're not going to ride like that's how it has to be for the next half an hour or week or month. Suppleness is important. You can't move on in the training if your horse starts to think that the way they do things is stiff, the way they do things is with pressure. So this trot, for instance, this trot that you get, that really beautiful working trot where you're going along with your horse and everything seems perfect, and then you want to take it to a leg yield, and then it slows down or it gets stiff or it goes against you, that trot that you had before is what you need to be able to do the leg yield. So we need to teach the horse what are the aids for the leg yield, and then we need to ride that trot through the leg yield. If the horse starts to get tensed, we trot straight, we get the looseness, we start the leg yield again. That's how we approach teaching. That's how we approach teaching the horse how to do things. Again, we don't say, my horse is supple, now it's stiff, I hold it in the leg yield until we finish the leg yield, and then I start trotting loose again. That's not how we want to do it. We need to be balanced independently from our horse so that we can apply our aids in a way that we can maintain that suppleness. There's when you start teaching things, it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to do it like it is in the test when your horse has never known how to do it before. Doing the movements is going to improve the gaits. Having good gaits, having understanding in the gaits is going to improve your movements. But just keep in mind that it can be a couple of steps that you lose that suppleness, a couple of steps that you lose that understanding, but it shouldn't be the way that your horse makes a leg yield or the way that it makes a shoulder in, because that's going to prevent the work that you're going to want to be doing in the future. It will not be able to turn easily into renvers, half pass, pirouettes, these kind of things, if you set the tone for the early on in their life. Connection. When we're talking about connection, we're talking about not just the reins, but that connection that you have with your butt in the saddle, with your horse's back, with your legs on their belly, on the rib cage, and with the reins on the mouth. Okay. So as we develop through this pyramid, connection is coming up to be the next most important thing. They have straightness above impulsion. I have spoken with some of my German trainers about the possibility that without straightness, it's very difficult to build impulsion. So this can be a little bit of a confusion, but I think we really need to have the horse forward. We need to have it in front of us. This is very important. And you build impulsion, you build that schwung, that they call that swing, out of that good rhythm, your suppleness and your connection. And so I think that you can't have collection without that impulsion. You can't really have anything without the horse moving forward. We already know that. But straightness in this case is talking about the ability for the horse to accept the aids through the body. So I find that sometimes people are building up this energy in their horses, but then when they try to half halt, the hind legs might be going out this way or that way, or the head up or over bending. And for me, that then they're lacking straightness. And then you need to back off a little bit on the impulsion, on the energy, on that, that maybe you've built up a little bit of tension, and then the horse isn't able to accept the aids through. So impulsion and straightness for me are pretty much in the middle, together there. And then, of course, if you're riding at the higher levels, having all of these things is going to build up your collection, that ability for the horse to be really uphill, light on the forehand, and seamlessly moving through the movements with you. So why we are talked about all of this is, in order for you to feel what's going on in your horse, you need to have a little background about what's supposed to be going on with your horse, because you can feel a lot of stuff, but if you don't know where you're supposed to be directing it, that's not really going to get you going in the right way for dressage, for this sport. So is anybody have any questions about the training pyramid, how these things are? If you're, again, you're losing the connection, then you're going to you're going to back off a little bit on the impulsion, get the connection back, and mental connection too. I forgot to mention that. I said legs and seat and reins, but also that mental connection that you want to have with your horse, understanding where they are and how they're interpreting what you're asking. So if you're losing that connection, you've got to back off a little bit on the impulsion, come back, build the connection up, then build up the impulsion again. And that's how I go through. And if I'm having a little trouble in my ride, I analyze it through my training pyramid. And this is the order that things are important. I'm not going to say that it's more, I don't want to have a loose horse that's pacing in the walk. I need to have a horse that is clear in the walk, and I develop the suppleness through that. Okay? If you have questions, feel free to type it into the chat box. Okay. Awareness. One reason many people are unable to feel what is honestly going on with their horses is a lack of awareness. What I mean by this is the head is filled. Our heads get filled with too many things about how it should be, what we want it to be, or what is wrong and what is missing. Many riders think too much about what happened yesterday or last week and are not in the here and now. We have so many ideas about what we think should be happening that we can't feel what is happening in order to improve it. Awareness is the ability to analyze what's going on right now, to be in this moment is so incredibly important to riding and to your horse. But we need to practice it in our everyday lives so that it feels more fluent when we are riding. Some days that you're a little bit out of whack, right? you're dropping things, or you feel like you're a little out of balance. Maybe you're making little mistakes that you didn't usually make, forgetful, these kind of things. If you can open yourself up and be more in the moment and in what's going on right now, and you're going to notice that your hand didn't close properly on whatever you were trying to pick up, or you're not going to shut your finger in the door or back into the shopping cart or whatever it is that's going on. But when your head is somewhere else and you're thinking about something that's going on at school or at work, or that you have the show coming up, or you're nervous about a lesson that you're going to take or a clinic, something gets displaced. All of a sudden, your mind is going 100 miles an hour, but it's not with your body. So you need to bring yourself back to where your body is and what's going on and the energy that you have about you at that time. And then because you come back to where you are, you can actually influence your energy to be more the way you want it. So you want to develop that habit of analyzing your body, maybe before you even get to the barn, but for sure when you get to the barn and before you start interacting with your horse. I had a client for a while, and she worked in a hospital, and I used to teach her in the evening after she was coming home from work. And she was so wound up, and never took time to leave that stuff at the hospital and then come and be at the barn as the person that her horse needed her to be. And of course, doesn't she go out and buy this horse that is knowing all the Grand Prix, but absolutely so hot. And the energy of those two together was just like it was not always working perfectly. In the end, she did end up having a lot of fun with him, but it took a while for her to realize what she was bringing from her job. And this can happen if we're coming from school uh, or any kind of activities that we might be bringing to the barn something that really doesn't belong there. So develop your ability to analyze your body before you before you even start interacting with your horse, I think is the best. But maybe even while you are starting to groom or whatever, try to stretch, work a little bit on your breath. Make sure you're hydrated. Water has a lot to do with our energy level and how balanced we feel, and how your brain is working and the confidence of your brain. And make sure you eat something healthy, that's good for you, that's giving you positive energy, not something that's going to take away from your energy or deplete your energy. Or, some people are also really sensitive to caffeine and things like that, that you want to have a little more energy, or you feel like you got tired during the day. Sugar and caffeine are not going to benefit the relationship that you have with the horse, because you're going to be reacting more to those chemicals and not to what you really want to be working on. Try to put anything that doesn't belong in the barn in a box and take it out later. Everybody has a different practice how to do that, but I definitely, if you don't have a practice like that, I recommend it. But I try to visualize a little lock box and or piggy bank or something. And if there's things that are kind of troubling me or that I'm worried about, maybe I'm going to put those in that box and tell them that I'll deal with them later, but this is Blondie's time, for instance. Right now, those things don't have any place in the ring with me and Blondie. It's just about me and her, and I'm going to put those things aside. So try to create a practice for yourself about that. I think a lot of times if you have a show coming up, or something like that, that can influence your ride in a positive way, where it's going to give you a little structure, what you want to work on, and what things are, what movements, or if you had a show a little while ago, things that didn't go well, things you want to improve. But on the other hand, shows can create some nerves, and that can come into your ride in a negative way. So just be careful about that too. Don't know how far away the show is. Know that you want to keep that positive rapport with your horse, and that you're not going to let your nerves or your worry about not doing well enough at the show enter into the training session. That you don't want that to be there. So that goes in the box, and you can deal with that later when you're doing your positive meditation and working on your breathing. For the awareness while you're grooming and tacking up, connect with your horse. Notice any sensitive areas, what kind of mood your horse is in, and acknowledge how his or her day was. So, do you know, was their routine the same as it usually is? Were they able to be turned out, or did they have to stay in? Was there, something that happened? Was the vet there, the blacksmith? Did they have any kind of medications recently? These kind of things that might affect your ride. So connect in that way and acknowledge those things too. So if you know that your horse had, for instance, a vaccination recently, then you know that you're going to approach the ride in a certain way. You're going to have that awareness that your horse might be a little tired, a little sore, a little stiff in the neck. You're not going to put that in the garbage and then just go out and ride like your horse should be fine. So the awareness, if your horse wasn't turned out because the weather is bad or something happened with the scheduling, and normally your horse is turned out before you ride it, you're going to come with that awareness. It might need a little more time to warm up, might need to be lunged if it's a little bit hot and it doesn't like standing in the box all day. These kind of things, they want to be not gripping you where you're making some kind of story about it, but just it loosely in your awareness, really loosely in your awareness. When your horse comes out to the ring and it's got a little more pep in its step, your awareness can say, oh, maybe I need to lunge today. She didn't go out in the paddock this morning, or something like that. You don't close your mind to that or say, I'm going to, you need to behave yourself, and we're going to work hard, and you're going to keep that energy inside yourself anyway. Just what is the best thing for my horse under those circumstances that I can set us up for success. And again, you don't want to put a story on it. So sometimes people start already building tension because the horse didn't get turned out. They're going to, what happened last week or last month or last year when they didn't turn it out. Don't put some bad story on it. Learn from the mistake that happened in the past, of course. And then what can I do to positively influence that information to make the ride go better this time? I know that she didn't go out or he didn't go out. I know she might come with a little bit more energy. And how can I direct that so that I can still have a good ride? And if you don't know the answers to those questions, that is a conversation for your trainer. Create intent and be flexible. So this is a little bit of a conflict, but before every ride, you want to spend a minute to think about what you want to work on. You're going to think about a theme. And if you're having a lesson, you're going to talk about that theme with your trainer. If you're not having a lesson, you might loosely plot out how your ride is going to go. That should be influenced by how the horse has been going for the last week. It should be influenced by if you rode yesterday or didn't ride yesterday. How did the ride go yesterday? It should be influenced a little bit about what you have coming up in your future. Do you have a show that you need to be prepared for? On the other side of that, it's really important that you have a little bit of flexibility. You don't give yourself a rigid program, but you give yourself a goal, um, and I would call it more like a theme. Today I want to work on my accuracy. Today I want to work on my forwardness. Today I want to work on my position. And so that that thought, that theme might be the most important thing going on in that ride. Now, we have to be flexible. So, what if I decided today I really want to work on my position and I want to spend a lot more time thinking about my balance and my posture and that my hands are in the right place and I've got my legs doing the right thing. And that's really important to me. But I come out and my horse is bouncing off the walls. I need to lunge it first. And then when I get on, I really need to influence my horse in a way that it knows that I'm in charge. I might have to be flexible and say, yeah, I'm going to ride with the best posture that I can today. I'm going to use my aids the best way that I can, but I'm going to be flexible in that structure of my position, because the most important thing today is my horse hears me, because she's a little bit energetic, might be a little naughty. It's more important that I can affect her with my aids. And that's going to I'm going to have to be flexible enough to say, I'm going to change that up today, because although I had the intention of working on my posture, my horse had the intention of being playful. Okay. So without a goal, you're not going to end up anywhere. But without that flexibility, you might end up in some kind of an argument, or, really, we have to have that connection with our horse, that they're on board with our theme. And if they come out and they're not on board, we are going to be flexible. Feel, which is the theme for the month, is all about knowing where to ask for a little more and when to praise an effort and say that is good enough. As you get to know your horse, you're going to start to get fluent with that. And because you get fluent with that, your progress is going to be for certain. Any questions about that? That's a big subject. We could really make a whole webinar for sure on, and actually I have a really fun one on just intention of the ride. But finding that flow, finding that you create a theme, but you also have that flexibility, and it's going to bring more joy to your riding also, when you're not really strict and serious and rigid. We have to have that feel and that flexibility so that we have fun. The other thing about awareness is to open yourself up to the feeling in the ring. When you come in, are there other people riding, and what kind of energy are they putting into the ring? The awareness of this is really going to help you connect with your horse better, because your horse instantly knows what energy is going on in the ring. You might be still in school. You might be still stressing about the show that you're going to do, or the show that you didn't love how it went. That all might be winding up in here. But you step into that ring, your horse is going to instantly feel what's going on with the other horses, with the other riders in the ring. So if you're not aware of it, your horse is going to come up with some things, some ideas, and some behaviors that are really going to surprise you, because that's not, oh, well, that's not typical. That's not how she usually behaves. Why is that happening? And it's all about that energy that's going on in the ring. That might not really have much to do with the energy that you are bringing, but then you need to bring different energy so that you can build that rapport and direct the energy the way you want it to go. So for certain, when we go to the show, we are vulnerable to the other people's energy that are warming up in the ring with us. So the more you practice at home, creating that rapport and that connection with your horse, and setting an intention about what you want that connection to be like, is going to help you when you get to the show, because you're already going to be in the habit. Okay. So having the awareness for me is a huge part of being able to feel what you want to feel from your horse, how you're going to affect your horse. So you're going to set the intention. You're going to walk your horse around the ring. You're going to notice. You're not going to absorb. You're just going to notice what's going on. And then you're going to override any negative energy or nervous energy or too much energy. You're going to build rapport with your horse, and you're going to create that feeling and that energy that you want to have between the two of you. And the sooner you do that, then the less forceful you have to be later. If your horse is building on the energy of the other horses in the ring, and those horses are really nervous, and you don't tune into that and start directing the energy where you want it to go, then you're going to have to be really strong and forceful and influential later, because your horse is going to go, really out somewhere you don't want it to go. Also, just outside of the ring. So if you're riding outside and there's horses out in the paddock, or there's something going on in the driveway or whatever that can get your horse's attention or change its energy, you need to, rein that in. Have that awareness that you don't need to go out there. What awareness doesn't mean that you're out in the driveway with the truck unhitching something or loading horses or whatever. You don't have to go out there. Your horse might start letting the energy go out there, that attention going out there. You're gonna rein it in. You're gonna bring it back in. So, but your awareness that it's going on, so that your horse is not surprising you, is really really important. And I think that's an art. It's really an art to be focused and together with your horse, but know out of your peripheral vision or just in your feel, something that might be going on that could get their attention, but you don't let them know that you're interested in it. And you just keep asking questions and riding your aids and your movements, keep gaining their trust and their attention on what you want to do. It also, what do I want my horse to know about me today? So what if you are stressed that something's going on in the ring, you are letting your horse know that. So how can I create that peaceful feeling in myself? What do I want my horse to think about me? What do I want them to know about me today? And I'm going to try to exude that kind of energy. And even more importantly, The most important thing, what do I want my horse to know about us? What do I want him or her to know about our relationship? And how can I really be the right person in that moment that I need to be to show her that our relationship is the most important thing, and that she can trust me and she can trust my actions, even though something else is going on that is interesting or scary or influencing them in a direction that we don't want to go. Um, and then last, but for sure not least, is other people's opinions. So I think it's really, 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 really in capital letters, really important to note that oftentimes that your mind is thinking about what somebody on the sidelines is thinking about you riding, about how your horse is going, about how you look. When you allow part of your brain to be occupied by those thoughts, it's impossible to have a good feel of what's going on with your horse. So you really need to practice not letting the fear of people's opinions get into that relationship that you have with your horse. Very, very difficult to do, but one of the most important things to do. On another note, and a little bit in a conflict with that, is you need to trust your trainer enough to let you know, let them in to let you know how things look so that you can develop correct feel. This is difficult because people talk about feeling, people understand feeling in different ways. So one person's idea of stiff, another person's idea of stiff, one person's idea of heavy, another person's idea of heavy, balanced, unbalanced. We need to keep the communication with our trainers really open, because I think that what it feels like when the horse's neck is in the right place is important, except that most horses can put their neck in a place that looks good here, there, and everywhere. I mean, I have many horses that the neck can look good in many different shapes, but the feeling is only going to be good when it's moving through the whole horse. So you need to work together with your trainer to develop this kind of feel. Not and this is going to evolve over time. Yes, this is an awesome question. So Edie asks, what is a good tip if your horse really moves well on the bit in the walk and use their muscles correctly too, but then during the transition we lose it going into the trot? So Crystal is here tonight, and she has a lot of experience with this, Edie. So what happens, so you're going to, as you teach your horse, you're going to have a good connection in the walk. A good connection in the trot is going to be developed. And then a good connection in the canter is going to be developed. And then we want to start developing that we can maintain these connections through the transitions. This is the next step. It doesn't happen all at once. And we really, really need to understand this. Day by day, week by week, month by month, things are going to get better. But when something needs to be worked on, you know where you want to be, but you need to let yourself work through it step by step, day by day. And we must not get frustrated that we have a good feeling in the walk. We can develop a good feeling in the trot, but there's this in-between time. And the in-between time with our good riding and our good training is going to get smaller and smaller. And then eventually you are going to be able to go fluently from the walk to the trot. But this does not happen all at once. What I recommend for you is, number one, make a preparation for the trot in the walk. In other words, you ask your horse to get ready to trot, but you don't trot yet. You build energy in the walk. You use your legs and you say, get ready. We're going to do this, but we're not doing it yet. How does your horse respond to that? Because many horses are already getting in trouble when you put the leg on, when you ask them to be more forward. So you need to just deal with that. You need to teach them, when I put my leg on, you go more forward. And you teach it. And it doesn't matter what happens with the neck in that moment. For a little bit, you got to let the neck go because they have to listen on your leg. When you use the leg with no reins and the horse understands to go, it can be the same thing. We use the reins with no legs. They have to learn how to stop, right? They might get stiff or whatever, but if the legs stop, they know. Bit means stop, legs mean go. Then we add the suppleness. I just need you to be a little bit supple. But if you're asking the horse to be supple and then they try to stop, then you got to say no gripping, no nothing. You got to keep walking and get supple. Get ready is add a little energy in the walk. Hopefully, you can get that off the leg. Then they learn to get ready and not come above the bit, not lose the connection. This is a small step between being able to go from the walk to the trot, is just being able to go more forward in the walk without losing that connection. Then you could make the walk a little bit small and slow again. Then you can make it forward again. Then you can make it small and slow again till you get that prompt response on your leg without that response, negative response that you feel that you're getting in your hand. And then you go to the trot. You're going to lose the connection in the beginning, but you just gain it back as quickly as you can. Have in your feeling, have in your aid what you know is the good trot. So many people start riding the resistance when their horse goes from the walk to the trot. They are ready and they're going to start riding against the resistance when they go from the walk to the trot. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you know your horse is going to put the head up, so you're going to hold it down. So that gives something for the horse to pull against. And they get ready because they know they have to trot, but they also know that you're going to pull. So they have to bully through the rein in order to trot. No. When you ask them to trot, you have to open the door to trot. And in your mind and in your feel, what is the best trot your horse ever did? And that's what you're riding when you ask them to trot. Your body is doing that trot. Not the I know you're going to put your head up and I need to pull it down trot, but the best trot you know it can do. And then you're opening the door for that possibility. You're opening the door for that trot, Edie. Okay? That's a lot. I just said a lot. So number one is you make I'm getting ready. And you teach your horse to walk faster and then slower and then faster and then slower, maintaining the connection. Number two is when you commit to trotting, you imagine in your body what the best trot your horse ever did, and as you ride the transition, that is the trot you're riding. In the beginning, your horse is not going to do it, but you just ignore that part because it's going to be in the beginning 10 steps of a trot you don't like, and then it's going to be 5 steps of a trot you don't like, and then all of a sudden it's going to start trotting just the way that it can in the middle of the ride, right from the start, because you teach that. You teach it how to do it, and you open the door and make it possible for it to do it. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that help you a little bit? All right. And next week, when you're here, I want you to tell me how it's going. Okay? So, we talked a little bit about stay connected with your trainer. And I just want to say a little bit more about that is I just wanted to say a little bit more about that you acknowledge that your trainer says, this is forward enough, this is where the neck needs to be, this is how things need to be. But if something looks good to the trainer but feels funny to you, communicate it. Now, it could be the correct feeling, and then you need to listen to your trainer and talk about it. Or it could be that the trainer is misinterpreting what's going on. I say it here. If you got 100 pounds in each hand, but the neck is in the right place and the trainer likes it, you need to communicate that. Okay? But certain things like straightness, your leg being forward or back, or your arm being, up or down, or your shoulders facing the right way, oftentimes we can think that we are aligned, but we need to listen to the trainer because our body gets used to being in a certain way and it feels a little bit uncomfortable when it's in the other way. So let your trainer help you with that awareness also. And then use the mirror. If you have the opportunity to use mirrors, but before you get to the mirror, take a feeling, have an image in your head. What do you think it's going to look like? And then when you look in the mirror, check in, is that what it looks like? Because that's very helpful. But if you're just using the mirror and then making adjustments, that's not going to help you when you get to the horse show or develop your own feel for what's going on. So use the mirror for sure, but use it to help you develop your feel, not to replace your feel. So this week, I would love it if you keep a journal about how the points that we talked about here have changed your feel. And you're welcome to share any significant points with me on email, or I would love to hear about it next week. And next week, we'll dive into the walking canter. And any questions that you have, feel free to email, or if anybody has any questions now, feel free to ask. I love that question, Edie. Thank you so much for bringing that up because it's good. But I think just those two things are already going to make a big improvement for you. Any questions?